Andrew Buchanan is the driving force behind Ghost Key, a Chicago area band on the forefront of the modern melodic hardcore movement. Although Andrew hails from the Midwest, we connected while the band was on tour in the Pacific Northwest. Fortunately for me, like every other tourist coming through the area, Andrew's tour bus stopped at a local coffee joint in the town of North Bend, Washington, home to the 1990s television show Twin Peaks. The band was heading into Seattle for a show, but before they left, Andrew and I struck up a conversation because, well, we're drummers. This is what we do. A friendship blossomed from there, and well, here we are. This is my conversation with the incredible drummer, Andrew Buchanan, on the Rockstar Superhero Podcast. Yeah, no, thanks so much for doing this, man. Drew, I think you're the real deal, Andrew, man. You really are. And what I want to know is for a guy who says, let's start it off this way. For a guy who says, never let them call you Drew. Yeah. How come on Twitter you're Drew Tree Drums? I've been trying to figure that one out.
Yeah. So Drew Tree Drums was just a spur of the moment thing for Twitter, because with my band, we had a bunch of stuff going on with like getting Twitter verified and stuff like that. So I had to make something that was just neutral that I could remember. Right. And it's super tacky, super silly, but Drew, obviously my name, Tree, because I'm tall, typical, and drums because I was in a band. And that's obviously what that boils down to. But it's funny because people that actually know me on a personal level never call me Drew. So that's something that you notice, especially on Twitter, like people that are like in my circle, they'll say Andrew did this or Andrew did that. But people that don't know me will say, oh, Drew did this or Drew did that. And I'm like, we know.
Oh, I see how that works. That's cool. That's okay. So you got out easy, man. You got out easy.
It was a clean slate right out the gate. So I was like, I'm gonna go with that.
Okay. So since your mom said, don't ever let them call you Drew. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your childhood. How did this all start for you? Because look, I mean, I can tell the story and I will get to that, but you're a fantastic drummer. You're a great guy. You had to be formed somehow. That doesn't come automatic. You have to have a good childhood or good friends or good something, a good influence. So tell me your baby story, if you don't mind.
Growing up, okay, so starting out, would you want me to start musically or just as is?
Dude, just tell me your story. This is a free for all. We're gonna fly like eagles today.
Okay, so it's pretty straightforward. Cool. Starts off, mother told me growing up that she used to let me play with pots and pans when I was like 2 or 3 years old in the kitchen when she was cooking, and that's apparently where it started. Just this creative realm, I would say. And since then, I've been playing drums. Like my mother's had me kind of in and out of things. I was very heavy in church for a while, and I played drums in church growing up. And then it got to say about 9 or 10, I started playing in church here and there. Yeah. And then it just kind of moved forward from there. But to continue on my childhood, my parents from Jamaica came here in the 70s.
Wow, cool.
And I don't know why they ended up in good old Peoria, Illinois, but they were.
Because it's the center of America. I mean, if there's anything that's a sort of well, not that it's a melting pot. I mean, I know you know this. It's not much of a melting pot. It's pretty white America.
Yeah.
But yet, I think your parents probably thought maybe because you're in the middle that somehow this is where everything collected. You know.
The story on how they technically got here was. My dad used to drive tour buses in Jamaica when I was young, way before I was born. And they met a family that lived here in the city. And while they were still in Jamaica, and eventually they got to a point where they were able to come here. My mother had some family that were able to get her here to America. And then my dad followed suit. And because that family that was visiting my parents in Jamaica while they were there, they're close in proximity. They live here in the area. So they just migrated here. My mom got to grow up in the house with that family. I call them aunt and uncle. I call them grandma, grandpa. Like that was how I was raised, even though they aren't blood.
Yeah. Ma'am and sir.
Yeah. All the family dynamics were there. We went to all their holiday gatherings. They always got me presents for Christmas. I was there for Thanksgiving, Easter, so on and so forth. And that was like what got me here to Illinois.
Yeah.
But that's just my mom and dad's side of the story. Continuing on me growing up, I've always been an artsy kid. That was just something I've always been doing. I've been drawing, writing, being outside, skateboarding, biking, the typical kid dude stuff, doing cartwheels off my front porch. You know, we used to get in the dirt and just have a good time. And my parents kind of allowed me to have that to myself. They let me just ruminate in that. They allowed me to just be. It wasn't a big, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that kind of thing. And I think it definitely benefited me now at this point in my life, looking back, that my parents gave me the leverage to kind of access all these avenues that I wanted to take a part of. But to getting older, 12, 13, 14, I started playing drums more actively. I was solely around snare. That was just my home. So I played marching band stuff and got into that realm.
Got your chops up, buddy.
Yeah, I got my chops in a little bit. But I think because of the church that I was going to growing up it was a gospel church. Okay. So that was, I think, a really big linchpin for me, because from what I've learned over the years musically, like a lot of the big drummers that are playing for bigger artists are originally gospel drummers. Yeah. I've learned that over the years. They just have a different way of doing chops and grooves and things like that. But I got to high school. I joined my first band ever. We were doing just covers of old punk bands and stuff like that, and played in our talent show. And I was going to play basketball my freshman year of high school, because I played bitty basketball up until that point in time. And I couldn't put on the mass, man. I couldn't gain the weight. I couldn't. It took everything out of me to try to gain the weight.
Yeah, post up. You're like, no.
Right. Like, I could do that in 7th grade. I could do that in 8th grade. But something was different freshman year of high school, man. Like, all the people that were hitting the gym and packing in the protein and gaining the weight, I just wasn't one of them. Yeah. So I went back into my musical roots. That was just what I defaulted back into. And I'm thankful for that, because it's definitely benefited me into my future. I've always been in a band since I was 14. So I've been in about 6 or 7 bands in between that time frame. Yeah. But that was like my first side of, oh my gosh, I can play drums like actively. This is something that could be something for me. So I started doing that, and then got out of high school. I had a really rough time in high school because I couldn't pay attention. It just wasn't my thing, man. Like, my teachers would get on me. They'd say, Andrew, you're acing your tests, but you're failing the class. Why is that? Yeah, I said, I think homework's silly and I don't want to do that. So I didn't do homework, but I would ace my tests. So I got out of high school. I left a couple years early and went away to a military academy. There's a place called Lincoln's Challenge in Rantoul, Illinois.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
military?
So I went away to it was a military academy. It was like a prep for going into the service.
Yeah, but still, dude, I mean, how does that happen? Like, what was pointing through your head that you were like, this sounds like a great idea?
Well, I was just going through a lot of mental health issues.
Oh, gotcha.
So me and my parents weren't having a good time.
Yeah.
Me and my teachers weren't having a good time.
Yeah.
I was just struggling with a lot of things. And my sister made a suggestion. She was like, there's this military academy that's like an hour and a half away from here. You could do that, get your GED, and be done. And I threw it around for a while, and I was like, I don't want to go off to a military academy and do that and be away from everybody. But it got to that point where I was 16 at the time. And that's like the entry age you can get in. It's like between your 16 and 19, you can go and get your GED. Gotcha. And instead of doing it all at one time, they just broke it up over the 5 months of you being there. So I was there for 5.5 months. And my parents would come and see me every other weekend or something like that. But I was predominantly there doing military stuff, learning about military stuff, and just like basically prepping to go into the Air Force, because I was thinking about doing that at that point in time. But I finished that, graduated at 16, started college at 16 that December. And then I did 1.5 years of college, and I realized I'm tired of school. This is pointless. I don't find any joy in this. There isn't anything that I can pull from this. So I started working full time at 16. And then by 18, I was in another band. I was in a metalcore band for a while, and we were just playing local shows for a couple years. And then it finally brings me to Ghost Key 2011.
Yeah.
And that is like still my baby. This is the year. This will be 10 years that we've been a band. And it's crazy. I'm not even 30 yet, and I've been in a band for 10 years, which is kind of cool to say.
Dude. But I gotta jump in because I gotta say something about that. So we've had some talks about my past and my history, and Jonathan Plum, who's recorded half of the famous 90s grunge artists here in Seattle. He's a good buddy of mine, and one day we were talking. He was like, his whole term is so many bands do not make it because of a tiny little character flaw that nobody can get over or nobody's willing to compromise with. Mm-hmm. And the thing that amazes me about Ghost Key, and I believe I'm correct, right? You guys have had the same core guys.
If we were to break it down, we've had the same original people since the beginning, minus the guitarist. And even then, with the guitarist and a recent bass player, we've been the original lineup. Like me, the vocalist, our guitarist, Chris Bayless. Yeah. And then Steven, our other guitarist. We consider Steven an original member because he was there in the beginning of our touring career.
Right.
And so we call him an OG. He's been a part of the band.
It's like Neil Peart and Rush.
Yeah, like all four of us have been original people in this band. Like everything that's been written, that is recorded, that has been EPs and full lengths, all four of us have been on.
Yeah.
So everything is literally the evolution of each one of us, not just having a different member come in and record things. And even on the last record that we did, that was when our current bass player, our old bass player left, and we got a new bass player for the last year and a half.
Gotcha.
And that was us. We all still wrote the bass parts. We all still did the extra legwork there. But even our new bass player, he fits right in with us. He just came in smooth sailing, and it was great.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And I guess what I was getting at was that relationships are tough enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just friendships are tough enough. And nobody in the music business thinks a second thought of this, but anybody outside the business, they don't understand how hard it is. Because as you have more members, it's worse.
Yeah.
So a 3, 4, 5 piece band, you have to get along. You have to share or agree on songwriting duties, on the arrangement. Yeah. Everybody wants a piece. Everybody wants a say. And you know what? Everybody should get a say, because the guy that says he doesn't care is the guy who will lose his shit later on. And the worst part about being a drummer, and you're one of them and I'm one of them, is we have a million ideas. We're great arrangers because we hear everything in front of us. We are actually driving the band. So we hear every nuance and we're saying, no. So that works. That doesn't work. And here's why. And the band has to figure out how to be married, right? It's like if you're a 5-piece band, you're basically 5 marriage partners and there's no sex.
Right.
It's just brutal and intense all the time, and you have to deal with each other. You have to smell each other's farts on tour buses. You have to eat the same crappy food all the time. You have to deal. It's like being in the military, except without benefits.
True.
And then everybody thinks because you're on TV, Eddie Vedder said that once to me, the difference between you and me is I'm on TV. Everybody thinks that because you're on TV, you're on this video right now, you're doing anything remotely in the public eye, you must be famous. And famous, all of a sudden, everybody wants a piece of you, and you're not even selling 10,000 records.
No.
You know what I mean? That's the dream.
That's the craziest part to me, is like touring the country, even after all these years. Like the way that the vernacular changed about my band over the years, like people around here think we're just like local big shots. And I'm like, no, we still work regular jobs. We're still trying to pay bills. We're still trying to figure life out. Like that portion hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And it brought me to I watched a video of a guy named Misha Mansour. Are you familiar with
Oh,
Periphery?
I love Misha.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
Bulb. Do you like Bulb or is it?
Love both.
Okay.
Love both. But I'm more towards Periphery from a
Yeah,
musical.
of course.
Really
They're fantastic. Yeah.
But he said something in a video where this is when I was in the middle of my band's career, and he was like, "We don't make any money off of Periphery.
No,
we all have side hustles. We all do other things that literally give us the time to write these records and tour off of this." He's like, "This has nothing to do with making money at all. Like, we still have to exist and coexist in this space and write music on our own dime. There's no extra funding coming in. Yes, there may be some publicity for like record label stuff. But other than that, we're out of pocket. Like, all the guitars we own, all the gear we have, everything we have to make sure we have beforehand." And he said, "Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. You're not going to make a ton of money. That's not what kind of business is about. You're never going to be at this caliber where you're comfortable because there's always going to be somebody else right underneath you that's trying to get to where you want to be. And you have to find your comfort level. You have to be able to know where your window is and be okay with that.
Yeah.
And know that if you're going to make progress, you're going to make progress, but know that that isn't the end all be all." So,
yeah, dude, no, that's right on the money. Devin Townsend, Devin Townsend is, right?
Oh, Devin Townsend.
Okay, so Devin, as you know, is a maniac, and meaning he's done everything from the most hardcore to the most mellow to the most operatic. That guy has hit every genre out of the park. And here's a guy who, after 30 years in the business, 30 years, because he started so young, and he has I think 23 or 24 different albums. So I mean, he's brilliant. Anybody who knows him knows he's brilliant. And I know there's going to be people listening to this podcast or watching this interview, and they're going to say, "Who's Devin Townsend?" Well, I implore you to just listen to the last 10 years because you're going to get everything known to man in just the last 10 years. But that guy, he funds his tours. Most people don't understand that. Here's this guy who's, on the forefront of kind of everything that's groundbreaking, considered to be a modern day genius, really is bonkers crazy. And when he goes out on tour, he's blessed. It's wonderful. He's blessed to get, 1,000-seat rooms, which isn't a lot. And he has to fund that entire tour. So he's fortunate to break even, in some cases make a profit. But I mean, when he's playing in Europe, thank God he goes to Europe because he's at least making some cash because genres seem to work over there, right? Where in America, you being in a hardcore band, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
You go to Europe, dude, you can open for Haken in Europe and you'll have the crowd eating out of your hand because they're so open to different styles. They want to be challenged. And that's why I love you guys. I didn't know anything about you. I know I'm talking a lot for a guy who's interviewing you.
Continue. I'm here for it.
But dude, I didn't know anything about you until I met you.
Yeah.
When I met you that day, for those who don't know, I met Andrew in North Bend, Washington, in a coffee shop while they were getting ready to go into Seattle to play at the show, maybe at the Vera Project or something.
We're doing Twin Peaks stuff.
Yeah. That's where it is.
Because all my bandmates are super into Twin Peaks, so we did all the little nooks and crannies and stops, and I was fortunate enough to be up before everyone else.
Yeah.
And I went to the coffee shop and I got to meet you.
Yeah. So we meet and we talk and simply start jabbing over, the fact that we're drummers. And I'm like, okay, so you're drumming with who? And then you're like, Ghost Key. And I'm like, cool. I mean, and dude, I mean, I know a lot about a lot in music and it's just, but it's the nature, right? It proves that you can be on tour, you can be doing all the things and almost nobody knows who you are.
Absolutely.
It's an awful, awful thing. And yet, if you don't do it, you're screwed because this is who you are. This is burned into your soul, right?
It's like the human condition for someone that is like stuck in that mode.
Yeah. I call it the artist's dilemma, which is we have no choice but to play. I got in this huge argument with my wife once, many years ago when I was still in the business. And I'd been down at NAF rehearsal recording and doing a whole bunch of stuff during the day. So this is in 96, 97, and I'm gone all day. And when I get home at night, and I mean, I was in town, I wasn't on tour, but I get home and my wife's very upset with me. And I said, I'm sorry, I've been doing this thing. And she's like, well, yeah, but you're having fun. And I said, you don't understand. I don't get to do this. I have to do this.
It's mandatory.
There's a complete insanity, and it's almost like it's a combination of like the need to be loved and like the God-sized hole. It's just this huge chasm inside of us. And I know you know what I'm talking about, bud.
Dude, I had this discussion with someone recently, and I was like, I've been venturing into other instruments.
Yeah.
Playing other stuff because I live in an apartment now and I don't have access to my drums all the time. So I've been producing music and doing all this extra stuff to kind of fill that void of just not being able to play out and not be able to have my own equipment here. So now I'm at this like weird intersection of where can I go now? Because there's just so much I can do and I'm capable of doing. But now that obviously the world is changing and times are changing and I'm getting older now and touring isn't as feasible as it was 4 years ago. And it's like, how do I reintegrate that back into my life? Having to come to terms with that and going, okay, now it's time to learn piano. Now it's time to get better at guitar. Now it's time to get into studio work. Now it's time to, and I've always wanted to get into studio work, which helps me now because I have that touring experience. It's like a sense of resilience, you can just withstand it. You've gotten used to being out on the road with a duffel bag and a backpack 6 months out of the year. That now you're in a studio for 12 hours. It doesn't even really bother you that much now. You're just like, okay, I'm here. I'm here to write. I'm here to work. Yeah. And so it's the chasm of being an artist trying to figure it out. It's a never ending loop.
Yeah. It'll never stop either.
No.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of crazy in what we do. I actually do this for a living. I don't know if you know this, but the podcasts and these video interviews, this is all part of the building the brand, so to speak, to what I do. But I actually coach what I would call failed musicians or failed artists into a normal life. And the reason I do that, dude, is because I was one of those guys who needed to be told, knock it off.
Yeah.
Enjoy the blessing of who you are and what you've been created to be. And like Misha said, figure out how to live so you can do this, so you can be the artist, so you can be the creative, because that's what matters. The other stuff, the whole idea of the whole fame, sex, money, the Bugattis, all that crap. I mean, it does happen to a few people, but it never happens to a band like Ghost Key. And it can't, because what Ghost Key does is truly alternative. It is not mainstream. It can't be mainstream. It challenges the cognoscenti. It makes everybody uncomfortable because they have to come to grips. When you listen to that kind of music and you listen to the lyrics, there's this dichotomy of anger and beauty all happening at the same time. And most people do not want to be confronted with that. And the reason you guys have success is because there's a group of people like myself who listen to it and go, wow, that hits a nerve. It challenges sort of the authority of the world. It allows me to hear a perspective that is uncomfortable or lovely, but it's all done with this soundscape of aggression underneath it. And that is potent and rare. And I'm telling you, the reason I wanted to interview you isn't just because we've become buddies in the past couple of years. And that's cool too, because this is badass. I love this. But I want people to know that bands like Ghost Key exist, and they should be seen and reveled in, because there's something really pure that is missing from almost everything nowadays. Like if you guys hit in 1991, you would have been another Nirvana. You have that kind of thing. I don't know what to say. I'm not blowing smoke, but that is a truth I feel. I think, the closest would probably be the Deftones. You're really close to the Deftones, bro.
And that's like, I think that's an influence of ours as well. I mean,
yeah, you think?
If we look at like our band when we first started, we said we knew we weren't going to make money. We knew we weren't going to be successful.
Yeah.
Like we knew that from the get-go. Like just because of the type of music we make to what we've been creating this entire span. Like we started out really in a, how would you say, like an early 2000s screamo sound.
Yeah.
Which I was a huge influence of in the early, like in the mid 2000s, like 2011, 2012. I was in a couple of other side projects that were all like screamo, scramsy sounding stuff. Very, how do I put it? It was just very noisy and chaotic and out of pocket and uncomfortable for people to listen to. It was just very, very terrible recorded music, very high pitched yelling, lots and lots and lots of feedback, lots of time signatures, lots of phasing and juxtaposing of sounds. And those kinds of bands I was always attracted to growing up. Right. And it kind of bled into Ghost Key when we first started out because Austin was learning how to use his voice, and his voice was more in this screamo aesthetic, so to speak. Right. And my guitarist, Chris Bayless, he's playing like really fast youth crew hardcore music. And then our bass player came straight from an indie band. So all these four people, I'm playing metalcore and listening to screamo music, but a vocalist listens to metalcore and screamo and noise music. And we were all listening to Deftones, mind you. There was like a lot of bands that were in the middle ground for us that we really gravitated towards. Even the band ISIS, which our name derives from, if you didn't know that. There's a band called ISIS from the 90s.
Yeah, I love them.
And they have a song called False Light. That was originally what our name was before Ghost Key. And it was off, I forgot what specific record it's on. But our first name was False Light. We found another band that sounded way heavier than us and way cooler than us. So we scrapped False Light and went for Ghost Key instead. I feel like Ghost Key is more fitting.
Yeah.
But it was just, I think the evolution of the music itself was something to look back on and go, holy cow, like us as musicians, like I can recall where I was at that point in my life as a musician standpoint, not from like a listener standpoint, and go, I remember what headspace I was when I was writing this portion of the record. I remember what headspace I was in on the last record. And if we were talking about it recently we have a big band group chat, and we were talking about if we write another record, what's it going to be like? Like, what are we feeling? And we all said it's going to be a heavier record than the last record. Right. And nobody knows, but now you're hearing it on your podcast, that
it was awesome.
Ghost Key's probably going to write another record come next year.
Oh, thank God. I was worried.
And yeah, but I mean, it's like we're all getting to that point in our lives where we're starting to experience just as much real stuff as we were when we were younger. It's just in a different avenue now.
Yeah, you're adults.
And it's interesting navigating the world through a different set of eyes. Like I can look back and listen to my music from how angsty that was on the first album and the EP of how fast and how driving and how aggressive it was. But listening to the last record of how I was listening to mostly jazz fusion during that record. Like I was listening to like the Four Corners and like like bands that were instrumental, like the Hakim Amar project experience, that kind of stuff I was really into. So I was able to incorporate a lot of that jazz fusion aesthetic, a lot of that gospel chop aesthetic into a hardcore band, which isn't really normal. You know, like a lot of people would say, you're supposed to play fast the whole time. And I said, you know what? I'm going to pull back on this record. I'm going to really just let things vibe in its essence and just play grooves and functional things that would allow me to kind of hang back and just vibe in my own realm. And that was something I can look at now. And I said, with the next record, it's only going to be more in that vein because that's where my head is. Like I'm older now. I'm feeling a different way now. Yes, I've still got aggression towards things in the world and how things are, but now I can channel it with a different sound. I can channel it with a different aesthetic. So
yeah, dude. No, that's legit. I totally understand you. I think there's a weird pressure to conform to what the genre says. Like, you know, like the idea of blast beats.
Yeah.
when they first came out, I didn't understand it. And here I've been a drummer. Dude, I'm 54 years old. I've been playing since I was 4. I mean, and I'm not saying that like this isn't about me. I'm not saying like how epic I am or anything. I'm really good, but
Hey,
I'm
you're
not.
going when it's need be, man.
Yeah. But the thing is when it happened, when blast beats started, when it became a thing, whenever that was, I wouldn't even, maybe Gene Hoglan. I don't know really who sort of kind of started at least getting it popularized in the genre. I didn't get it. I also didn't get the Cookie Monster thing, the screaming. I didn't get it, and I'll tell you, it took a long time, a long time. In fact, it wasn't that long ago that I finally went, oh, I see it now, and it was almost like I had to get numb to it. I had to be brutalized a bit by it, if that makes sense. A lot of that was Devin Townsend because he was taking orchestral music and putting blast beats to it. How do you mix opera and blast beats and 80s synth pop? And he was doing it. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, good God, what is this? And then here's what happened, dude. In 2012, he went on tour with Gojira. Now, I know what you're going to say. Gojira is like, if Jesus were a band, he would be Gojira. It's phenomenal. There's like nothing like it. And they do 2 things that I've never experienced. And I've had a whole bunch of people say to me, oh, that's what it is. One, the drums are, I mean, Mario plays with such like groovy technical. I mean, everything is ghost notes. It's just it's phenomenal. And what I love about him is he's imperfect. He makes tons of time and errors, but yet the band is so rehearsed that it just flows. It just crushes. But it's Joe's vocals. Joe's vocals, you realize he's not screaming. He's howling in pitch. When he does like Another World, he's not going, another world. He's going, another world. He's singing a note in his scream. And it all of a sudden, it takes something that is very aggressive and makes it melodic that works. And I'm telling you, I'm not going to equate you to Gojira. I can't do that. And it doesn't mean that you guys aren't epic. That's not it. It's just you're not like Gojira. You are you. Right. And that's again why I went back to, the references to, the Deftones, because there's this hardcore hopefulness. And again, the word dichotomy I think is important, and I wanted to actually touch on that. I got to get back on track here. Well, because guys like us, we like each other personally, right. and we're both drummers and we're both experienced drummers, so we could talk about paradiddles and flammacues all day, and everybody's going to be like zeroed out, But Ghost Key is a total conundrum to me, and I'm hoping you'll explain a little bit about this. It seems like you guys have these, very angst-ridden, sort of feelings in the music. There's a feeling of anger or confusion or questioning, right? But yet there's these majestic, hopeful words, these lyrics. I'm not a big lyric guy. Sure. Being a drummer, I tend to just be looking for the groove, drums. Right? Yep. But who's playing? Right. Period. Right. Where's the bounce? Yeah. You know what I mean? But you guys put this thing together that is really uncommon. And you brought up church before, and we've had a little bit of conversations about this before. So I'm a swearing blankety blank guy, but I'm actually a Christian guy, right? I grew up in the church. I play drums in the church still to this day. I freaking bring the rock to my church. Yeah. You know what I mean? I bring full on. I'm in there playing thrash beats and double medals. Just that. You know what I mean? And they like it, which is really cool. But how did Ghost Key? How did you guys step across that line? Because it seems to me like you're either all believers who just are questioning life and questioning authority, or you're searching for spirituality. And that is, again, I don't want to make this a Christian or non-Christian thing because I hate to say it, I don't care.
Sure.
I just am curious because it feels like my sixth sense is telling me you are men of faith who are not so much turning your back on church, just saying, look, this is who we are. This is what we do. And like all human beings, we're searching. Am I on track?
Yeah. Well, I think it comes from most of the people in the band were Christians at a point in time. I will say that because I know I grew up in the church. Both of my guitarists grew up in the church. Austin used to be in the church as well. Gotcha. At a certain point, I think in high school, in college, in playing in the scene, in life experiences, that most of our perceptions have changed. But I think a lot of us still follow some standard Christian views. It's just that we don't identify ourselves as Christians. But there's always been that sense of being unaware and uncertain as musicians, I think, as a whole, because we all come from different backgrounds and we all have a lot of similarities in like our life experiences. And we've always found the band is the only way to kind of get that stuff out without having to shove it down our families' backs or our friends' backs. You know, we were able to use the music as a gateway to just simply get rid of how we're feeling and how we're navigating the world.
Yeah.
And like you said with confusion, we've dealt with that as a band because it's great you say confusion because we've been told our entire music career that we're not a metalcore band, right?
Wow.
We're not a hardcore band. There we go. We're not a hardcore band, even though we classify ourselves as Ghost Key, a hardcore band. We've never fit that genre. Every band we're out with would say, "You guys don't sound like a hardcore band.
How's that possible?
Sound like some kind of like atmospheric, post-metal influenced punk, post-hardcore."
Yeah, post-hardcore. That's what I think.
Say those kinds of things, and we're like, "No, we're a hardcore band." Like the way we dress, the way we act, the music we listen to in the van when we're traveling. I mean, we're listening to Harm's Way. We're listening to Slam. We're listening to Cattle Decap. We're listening to Suffocation. We're listening to bands that are just heavy and noisy and out of our realm. We liked all the Youth Crew music, like Mindset and all these other bands, but our music itself aligned with none of those. None of those no one could really put us in a box. No one could be like, "Oh man, we need to put Ghost Key on a bill." Who do we put them with? Like, we want to do a hardcore tour. We can't put Ghost Key on there. They're not a hardcore band. Like, people in the scene said that. They're like, "You guys aren't a hardcore band. You guys don't sound like a hardcore band. You don't feel like a hardcore band." They're like, "You guys are too emotional." So a bunch of sad boys writing some kind of post-hardcore sound.
Man, that's not true.
But
Come
it's
on.
like that. But tell that to a 22-year-old kid
Yeah.
who is on the road, starting his touring career, and everybody on the tour package is like, "You guys are giving me these kind of vibes. You give me these kind of vibes."
Yeah.
You know? And it really clicked to me. We played in California on our first tour to California ever. So I'm just jazzed to be on the West Coast, for one. And we played a show, I think it was in San Diego. I think it was San Diego or Van Nuys, something like that. And there was an older guy there with his son. And the older guy that was there, he was probably in his 40s or 50s with his son coming to a hardcore show. And we played with a bunch of like beatdown bands that were just like beating each other up and walking in the crowd and stuff like that. And then we play. And the dad walked up to us, like me and Austin, my vocalist, we were just standing around talking to people after the show. And he's like, "You guys remind me of like ISIS and Misery Signals."
Oh my God.
What?
Right on the money. Right on the money.
Are you serious? This guy pulling up in like cargo shorts and New Balances, and his son's listening to all the other bands on the roster. But his dad like came up to us and was like, "You guys are incredible. You guys are different. You guys remind me of like what this used to sound like." And for me to hear that and Austin to hear that, we were just in shock. He's like, "You guys sound like Deftones. You got this very like atmospheric sound, but there's so much energy and emotion and drive." And that was like my moment of clicking. I'm like, we don't fit, guys. Like, there's nothing we can do that we can't fit in the genre. This guy pointed out something that we resonate with this. Like Russian Circles, those kind of atmospheric bands were what we come from. You know, we love that aesthetic of sound, but we tried to find a way to jam it into this hardcore chasm of sound. And for some reason, it just clicked for us, and we liked it that way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the way it's supposed to be, though, dude.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like that. You're not supposed to conform.
Right. And we even said that with the Future records. We said we want to just keep writing atmospheric post-hardcore music, if that's what you want to call it. But as we're getting older, I realize I'm listening to more stuff that's in drop A. I'm listening to stuff that's really
drop A.
I mean, progressive bands, I'm listening to more like Pliny and Intervals and heavier bands with more musicality, you know? They're still atmospheric, and they have a lot of drive and a lot of aggression, like Animals as leaders. Like those are kind of bands that we're starting to tag into now. And I'm like, I don't need to play the crazy stuff. Give me the bass chord. What is that? What is that harmonic? We can literally riff on that harmonic. That is a groove, and I can play something heavy to it. Yeah. It's like taking that one chord and just chunking that one chord into a couple other pieces. You've got a chorus. You don't have to play all this crazy wild stuff. But listening to that has given my ear the kind of awareness of the tonality to go, man, we can write Gojira riffs. We can write Deftones riffs and go more in that vein as a band as we get older. Like that is something we can utilize to our advantage because we've experienced it. We know it and we like it. And that's kind of really all that matters.
Yeah. You know, how you put that is so important because it shows, Andrew, that you know, one, what you're talking about, and two, exactly the direction you want and the direction that Ghost Key wants. You guys are in agreement that this is who we are. You've owned it. And that is the biggest part of this business. That's what when I'm talking to artists, I'm always coaching them through that stuff. You got to step into who you are. Quit worrying about what you think culture owes you. The idea of being rich, or again, you know, success in the traditional American view of I got a lot of money, I got a cool car, I got a whole bunch of houses, and I got a hot girlfriend. You know what I mean? Those are nice things, and you might get them. But if you're doing it for that, you've heard it a million times, you're going to die on the vine. You know?
You're not going to love any of it. You're not going to enjoy it.
You know, but something you've just said, and bringing back up Gojira, and I love this, is most people like me who are just strictly listening to the music, just the music, not the lyrics. Mm-hmm. They're saying, oh my God, this is literally like a giant 100-foot tall animal destroying a town.
Literally.
All of their music has, I mean, the name is the most perfect name in the history of rock bands because they sound literally like a monster.
It sounds like Godzilla's arch enemy.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes. It sounds like a character in Rampage. Like it's one of those kinds of things where if you close your eyes and you say the word Gojira, what comes to mind? Some Japanese dinosaur creature blowing up the city.
Exactly.
That's exactly it. And the music just hits like a truck, man.
Right.
Like, it's so in your face, and it's just tonally there. Like it sends you to that soundscape where you were just looking around.
Yes, but what does it do lyrically? They're talking about environmental impact. I mean, they're literally a green band. It's bonkers. They are so original. I was just like, you're serious? The line is plastic bag in the sea. Are you serious? Like, at first I laughed because I was like, that's so over the top and stupid.
Yeah.
But they're sincere. They're like, we took the world away from the indigenous tribes and then we created crash heaps everywhere and then we're gonna thrash to it. But see, here's what I'm getting at. What has happened when you guys go out on tour, whether you're playing with, I don't know, you know, like you said, ISIS, or you're playing with, I don't know, opening for, gosh, name a good hardcore band.
Genre, probably Knocked Loose is probably one of the biggest
ones.
Yeah. Huge.
Yeah. No, like Dillinger even. You know, I mean, they don't exist anymore. We know this, but I mean, my God. I've never seen anything like that in my life. Yeah. But anyways, the whole point being is that when people would say, oh, you guys aren't X. You don't fit into the hardcore or the thrash or the combination or the screamo or post-punk or, post-hardcore or all these terms like whatever. And Thomas Erach said that, we were talking about Fall of Troy, and it's the same thing. He's just trying to be Thomas. And how do you recognize Thomas? You recognize him by his vocals, his weird fretwork that he does, right? Well, I recognize Ghost Key by this sort of subliminal harmony, this subliminal lyric content. Again, going back to that there's this beautiful subterfuge that's happening underneath this sort of intense music. So the music is bold and in your face. The screams are in your face, but the lyric content is actually the what that's going on in the listener's ear. They don't know what's happening to them.
Right.
And I'm telling you, you guys just stick to your guns. You may not ever be big and famous.
Fine.
I think but you're always going to have legacy because you stayed true to who you are. And the people that will fall in love with you will be there for life. Guys like me who discovered you very recently, I've only known about you guys for 3 years now.
Yeah.
And you're fantastic. And I thought you guys broke up. So it's so nice to hear that this is coming out again, that you're coming back, that there's more to come. But that thing, I don't know if you want to address it and I'll stop talking, but just owning that ism that makes Ghost Key unique is so important.
Yeah. I feel as though it's just the experience, like life experience, that has really shifted the way we think and the way we write music. And I feel as though with the next record, there's going to be just more added weight,
right?
Because now that we're older, we have more lived in lives. There's more experiences to talk about, more things that have happened in the world to talk about, more issues mentally, emotionally, physically, relationship related that have changed, and some positive, some bad. But like Ghost Key is that outlet for, I would say, the bad, because there is hope in our music, but there's a lot of discussion talking points in our music where you can look at the lyrics and go, geez, am I experiencing this right now? Why do I feel this way? Why am I emotionally feeling this way? And how do I get through that? How do I understand that or come to terms with that? And that's been the constant battle in this band. That's what our music is based around, is that constant struggle between yin and yang.
Yeah.
Am I being positive in this situation or am I being negative? And how am I understanding this? How am I digesting this information? And how can I grow from this? Because a lot of people just get stuck in the rut, man. Like, it sucks to see so many people, even in my life, in the past couple of years, between this last album and now, there's just so much stuff to talk about. There's so much stuff to write about. There's so much music I've listened to that I've gained influence from. And it kind of really I feel like I want to go full circle again. I feel like we're at that point as a band where I could go back to that first EP we wrote and literally rip the first EP as much as possible and write it heavier.
Yeah.
Make it more aggressive. Make it more in your face. We could tune it lower, play it faster. That's where that energy is coming from. And I realized during those years of us like touring, and before we got the van and trailer, we did our first tour, our first tour in our vocalist Astro van. And it was just a few of us in the Astro van with all of our gear in the Astro van. And it was just a quick little Midwestern run. But even during that time, like, we played mostly house shows, and some of those shows were dead. We played for 4 or 5 people. And that was still fun. That was still awesome because I still got to play as loud as I wanted to. I got to hit my drums as aggressive as I wanted to.
Yeah.
And that stuff stood out to people. People were like, dude, you play your drums. And I said, that's what they're for. That is what the drums are for. People baby their drums. And I said, beat them. They're there to comfort you. They're there to keep you sane. You use that. You use that as that weight. That's like going to the gym and lifting weights. That is your drum set.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, like, it doesn't matter who's in the room. Like, you're playing for yourself before anyone else.
Yeah.
Like, if
Yeah.
you give a crap about this, you're playing for you, bro. You're playing for yourself, because if you don't like what you're doing, you're wasting time. No matter who's in the room, like, who cares? Like, the only reason why you're here is because you want to play music. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it blows my mind that, like, even on the last run that we did, we didn't have a good turnout. We didn't have a lot of fun on that tour. But looking back on it, I was like, dude, I got to play drums. I got to just play stages. I got places to sleep. I had food to eat. I was fine. Like, that's
Are you a big Refused fan?
I'm in and out of Refused, but I like them. They're great.
Okay. Okay. But you know, that first album, well, actually, I think it was their only album. But that first album, you know, I mean, it was released after the band broke up. And most people don't know that. Most people don't know that they recorded all that material, they rehearsed it all, but then they went on a college tour, and then they broke up out on the college tour. And then they released the album, and MTV made them release that video. And that one song was enough to stick them in the public conscious. But the thing that's amazing, and I'm not a big fan, mostly because they're a little too sloppy. Not that I'm, I don't know. I am pretty arrogant about technical. I want the music to stay in tempo or as close to as possible. I want it to have a groove, and I would like to hear things in key. Yep. I've never been a big fan of like super old school thrashy punk. I don't get it. Like the Germs. I think that's shit. It's shit. It's just awful for the sake of awful. But I wasn't there, and I wasn't the right age. Okay, I take it back. I was the right age. I wasn't there to be in the middle of it and have it affect me. It didn't. Sure. There was no energy to it. It was just annoying to me. Mm-hmm. But the point being about Disturbed and you guys is courage. It's the courage to do something that is honestly probably misunderstood and unloved, and to do it anyway, and to do it louder. Because if I could share any one thing with you, not that you need encouragement, Andrew, because you're already badass, but you know, when I was a senior in high school, my band teacher left me with one word I've never forgotten. And when I say word, I mean a piece of advice. Mm-hmm. He said, Rob, you know, I was in band class, and I was really playing timid. I don't know why. I was a senior. I mean, it's not like I don't know how to play. I could read the music. It wasn't an issue. We were playing some symphonic piece, and I was holding back playing something that was supposed to be mezzo forte or maybe forte. And I was playing it pianissimo. I mean, I was just barely playing. And he stops the band, and he kind of, you know, he points at me, and he's like, hey, listen, are you reading the music? And I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, Rob, what's going on? And I said, well, I just, you know, I don't feel comfortable reading music, which was true at the time. And I was just so afraid, because honestly, dude, I was a pretty exceptional young drummer, and I didn't want anybody to hear me make a mistake. Yeah. And you know, I hadn't got over that yet. I hadn't got over the, you know, eat crow thing. And his name was Mr. Lundberg, Dan Lundberg. He said, Rob, he said, just play the song. If you make a mistake, make it loud.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And dude, I live my life like that. I blow everything up all the time. You ask my wife, you ask my kids, they'll all tell you I'm a complete idiot. I jump off the cliff every day. I never have a parachute. I have to knit one on the way down, dude. You know? But people love that. And when I die, and it's gonna be the same for you, when guys like us die, man, the world mourns, or at least our world does, because we've completely stepped in and just went, and you know, we've just completely owned the room. And it's not that we're trying to, you know, overwhelm anybody or bully it. Sometimes we're in a great mood. Sometimes we're super pissed. But people can feel us coming because we have so much power. And that's what I love about you, Andrew. You have so much power. You know, and I was drawn to it sitting in that coffee shop. I'm like, that dude, he's got energy, and I want to know it. You know what I mean? And I'm straight as a bird, Bo.
I appreciate that though, man. Like,
Yeah.
it makes me think of like growing up for me too. Like, I was bullied growing up in like grade school and stuff, and people used to make fun of me and call me out. And I was pretty shy up until high school, and I remember playing drums on my we played my freshman year talent show. Band was called The Last Autumn, and we did the cover of Number 5 of the Bullet by Taking Back Sunday for a high school talent show, right? And that was the first time I played drums in front of anyone other than like the few people at my church, right? And at that moment in time, I was like, you know what? The curtain's going to go back, and I'm just going to do what I can do. And that's it. I'm just going to play. And we won. And I saw the way people changed after that. Like, now that like they think you're a big shot because you're in a band and you play in high school now and all that junk.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a fear thing for me. It was like, holy cow, like, that's it? Like, that's what this is? This could be this? Like, I can play this? I can experience this? And then it takes me to Ghost Key. Like, that one experience of being on my high school stage playing a crappy D drum set with Zildjian ZBT cymbals.
Total piece of shit cymbals.
And one 5A and one 7B in the other hand. Like, just mismatched sticks, everything. And I was able to just play.
Yeah.
The drums sounded like complete dirt, man. Like, the drums were trash. I didn't know how to tune drums at 14. I was like, I'm just playing drums.
Yeah.
And it brought me here. Like, that's crazy to think that all that time from there, it's helped me get out of my shell and learn how to communicate and talk to people and learn. Like, just simply by exploring an instrument allowed me to be able to connect with people I would have never been able to cross paths with. Like you. Like, if I wasn't playing drums, we would have never known. Like, holy crap, we're going to bond over freaking synthwave in the 80s and just bands from Seattle that I didn't know that you were telling me about, you know? And I'm like, this is sick, man. Like, all these things that are around us, we can just explore and expand on.
Yeah, dude, I got to cut this a bit short, and I hate to do this. I don't want to cut it short, but I do want to say this. Because
we can always do another one. It's not.
No, we can do that. We can do that. But before I go, there's really two things I wanted to talk about. One, I wanted to share a little something with you, and I will momentarily. But two, I want to know what the direction you're going with besides the Ghost Key stuff. I've seen you've been doing some beat stuff online, and I'm curious if you want to share a little of that with my audience.
Yeah, I have. I've been doing a lot of just production stuff of all kinds. I've been making synthwave music because I'm very big into that whole 80s synth pop aesthetic.
Love it.
I've always been into that. And I've been doing a lot of instrumental stuff. I've been tagging into trap music because obviously lots of hip hop in my house. So that's something else that I've navigated into. But I have a lot of stuff on my computer just stashed away that the world hasn't heard yet. And it's just been really fun exploring that. And let me see, I might have something for you that you can. It's not fully mixed, as every engineer says, but it's something. It's something that is at least tasteful for the audience.
Well, if you want to send it to me, I can put it on your podcast when we drop it, if you don't mind.
I'm into it.
I would love that.
Just so you have it and you can use it for whatever. I mean,
yeah,
I don't mind it. Everything is fair game in my house. So.
No. No, that's awesome. You know, while you're looking for that, I wanted to share something with you.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking with this isn't a churchy thing I'm about to say, but my pastor is one of my best friends, and we go to a lot of metal shows. So, I mean, he loves Gojira. When they released that new song today, I mean, I
haven't listened to it yet. Don't spoil it.
Oh, dude. I will say one thing without spoiling anything. Okay. They went back. Thank God.
Oh my God! I saw like a whole bunch of people already tweeting it today, and I was just like, man, I'm gonna have to turn on the studio monitors for this one.
Yeah. I'm gonna do a reaction. I'm gonna do a reaction video to it. I've already seen it, but I'm gonna watch it again. It's pretty great. All I was gonna say is this: I was going through a bout of depression a couple of years ago, right around the time I met you, actually. And I'd never been what I would actually call clinically depressed. I was absolutely clinical. I was, not smoking pot, but I mean, I was like laying on my couch and just eating a ton of junk and feeling sorry for myself and crying all the time. And I could tell you, I don't know why. It just I just felt like the world, I was done and I was just waiting to die. And it's true. I really did. I'm not exaggerating. And one day I was talking to my buddy Rick and I said, I just want to know, like, why? Like, if I could ask God the question we all ask, why? Like, why is this happening to me? Why am I here? How come all the things I thought in my life that I was not so much do, but I thought that would happen, who starts playing drums at 4 and doesn't make a career out of it? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It's like
started on
yeah, no, you get it. So I'm talking about that whole thing. I'm talking about, look, there's no other way to say it. I'm really freaking good. Okay. I mean, I'm really, really good. Yeah. And the problem with that is there's a huge level of expectation. So I'm going to throw myself up on a cross right now. There's this huge level of expectation that you should be somebody, that you should have gone somewhere, that you should have become famous. And so all these things culture tells you, and they're stuck in your head, and you hear it and you believe it and you think it, and you're laying in bed at night and you're feeling like crap and you're saying like, I should be dead, and how come I never got famous, and all this other crap. And my pastor says to me, you know what your purpose is, Rob? Your purpose is people. And I thought about that, and that sounds like such a trite sort of churchy answer, but he explained it. And he said, here's the reality. If Christ is real, and I like how he said that, if Christ is real, and if Christ died for us, he already did everything. So he doesn't owe you anything. So in other words, if you exist on this planet and you're here to do good things, whether it's in the Christian walk or not, your purpose is how you impact others. So if you're a musician, take your gift and do something for others. But it's not about you. It's about your gift that you received. That's why it's called a gift, idiot. And go do something with the gift for others. Gift them with your gift. That's all it is. And what I love about you, Andrew, is you gift people with your gift. It's real.
That really
don't cry. Don't cry.
It's just nice to hear, I guess.
Yeah.
I've been having a massive flux of people say that to me on social media lately, just on Twitter, on Instagram, on everything. And I'm just like, I'm just existing, man. Like I'm not trying to do anything out of the ordinary. I'm just here, and it just means a lot. And I know that there's a lot more to give. My mother works for the school district here in town, and she's always been that kind of woman in the school system. Growing up, I used to watch her just help people just because she never really asked anything in return. She's always very open to criticism. She's very open to not understanding things and being accepting of that. Because I know a lot of people, they hate having the wrong answer. And she's like, listen to your opponents. Listen to people that you think are against you. Because you never know what side of the field they're coming from, for one. And two, if they're wrong, you have a rebuttal. You have something to say. You can at least enlighten or educate, vice versa. And that has always stuck with me. I always feel like there's something I can learn from anybody. Everybody I cross paths with, I can connect with. I can learn something from. Whether they may be from another country and they have another language that they speak, I can ask them about that. I can talk about it. I can learn a new word. Like, there's always something you can pick and pull from to learn from people. And I just don't think that we should limit ourselves in doing so. Like, if you have access to everything in front of you, you got the internet, you got social media, you got all this stuff. It's like, man, you can hop on YouTube and start learning a new language. You can, me picking up piano. I got a piano that my buddy TJ let me have for a while. And I've been just learning piano, learning songs that I already know, and just figuring out what is a triad, what is an interval, what is all this stuff, and just getting familiar with sounds. Oh, that's a G. Oh, that's a C minor. That's a C minor triad. That's a C major triad. Like, and I can just access it. And I just would hope that people would do that, not just because they see me doing it, but because they have the access to doing so as well. You know, you have the opportunity to just make something happen, and you can just do it. There's nothing really stopping you from doing so. You can just access it. But that's me speaking it into existence. I struggle with it myself, as just taking the initiative and doing things. But I think most of us do. We have all the words to help everyone else, but when it comes to ourselves, we struggle with getting ourselves to that point. But I feel like if you manifest it and talk about it enough, eventually you just get to that point where things just start falling into place. You start talking about it, all those signs just start pointing you in the right direction every time.
Yeah. Well, you know, like Steve Harvey said in that famous video, I don't know if you've seen it. He said, "You got to jump. You got to jump, because you'll never know. You'll never know what God has for you if you don't jump. You'll never know."
And you don't even think about it. You know, it's something that's so out of sight, out of mind, that you look at it and go, "Man, is this really what I want to do? Is this how I navigate this? How am I going to figure this out?" And lo and behold, all those signs just start popping up. Yeah. The more you keep asking, the more you keep questioning it and challenging it, eventually it just starts coming together, which is wild to think about. But from what I've experienced, that's how Ghost Key's a thing.
Well, I think you
tip on something, you know?
Yeah. I think if you pursue what you love, you'll get course corrected over time. You know, things happen. Your audience changes you. It actually doesn't it doesn't follow what you've become. Your audience influences what you become. And most artists struggle greatly with that, because what they don't want to do is become what the audience wants. But the fact is they want the audience. So you have no choice. You have to go in the direction your audience favors. So if you find that a certain type of your music works better, then congratulations, that's your choice. Or you can thumb your nose to everybody,
right,
and keep pursuing, and then maybe piss off that audience, but then find, quote unquote, your correct audience. You know what I mean? Who really knows? But you just kind of, that goes back to the whole thing. That's why being a dad, I mean, I have 6 kids, dude. And I know that's a whole other story. But but you have to go forward, fail. You have to be willing to fail. And almost nobody's willing to fail. And you have to be willing to fail a million times and to keep going back. But you just keep going and keep going, keep going. And as long as you keep course correcting, you know, then you're not a fool, right? The fool keeps going back and doing the same thing and expecting to change. But as an artist, you know, you're moving towards a complete or a close to complete version of Andrew. And the only way you can do that is to keep evolving based on what you've learned. And again, the feedback you're getting from your audience, and go forward from there. That's all you can do. Right. So I love the fact that you now, as this older man, which is hilarious because you're younger than my son. But with this experience that you have in this decade in Ghost Key, you know, your desire to sort of go back and fix what you did, but you don't have to, because honestly, what you did was great, but now you can do something extraordinary because you have the courage, you have the fortitude, and you have the talent to go, well, screw this. I'm going to do all the hardcore I always wanted to do. And trust me, you may not love it, but you'll learn to understand it. And then through time of understanding, you'll learn to love it like I love it. I really think that's the truth.
That's where I am with my music at this point in time. Even the first EP we did, there's 2 songs that aren't on Spotify or any streaming services. That was just on a tape, the version of those 2 songs. And I listen to those sometimes, and I just go, man,
so good.
It's crazy what I was listening to at that time. It's crazy to think that, like, I was putting those fills in that kind of song. How did I make that fit? How did I, you know what I mean? Like, there's things that you wouldn't think worked.
Yeah.
You go back and you're like, damn, that was good. That transition was good. The pocket on that was good. Like I was spot on. And even live, like I realized playing live was a different experience than playing on record. And there's a whole different way that I play live than I play on record.
Oh, sure.
There's so many fills that I don't do on the record.
Yeah, of course.
Only for live's sake.
Yeah.
And people were like, wait a minute, what is that pattern? What is that groove? What is that? Like there's one part in a song where it's just driving 4 on the ride, but I have an ostinato with my hi-hat closed, and I'm playing a polyrhythm over that with the ostinato on the left side.
Of course.
And someone was like, when did you do, where did you put that? Well, I didn't hear that on the record. And I'm like, that's the whole point. It's all groove. It's all feeling. I play what I like to play when I want to play it.
Yeah.
I keep it on the same general dish of food, but I decided to add different spices today. It's just a different feeling. So
well, but it's also the songs evolve. I mean, you know as well as I do that you record a song and you're like, man, that's the perfect take. It's the right part for the song. And then 2 months later, you never ever play it like that again. Never. Ever. Like now it's got a quarter note triplet in it the whole time. Don't, right? I mean, I know you know.
In that part is dead. Like that changes, and then your guitars pick it up, and they go, all right, we're gonna play it too. That's sick. We're just gonna change it. So live, there's a whole different feeling than playing that on the record. So
yeah, dude, I love this. This has been fantastic. You're the musical evolution master, and you're young. You got years and years and years in front of you, man.
I hope to be a wise sage. I would like to just be the guy that sits on his stoop, relaxing, taking in energy and wisdom, and learning as I go.
Man, before we go, anything you want to share with the audience? The best ways to reach you, your handle online, your .coms, anything. What do you want to share?
All of my social media is Drew Tree Drums, literally spelled how you hear it. My Instagram, my Twitter. I have Clubhouse now, so if anybody's on Clubhouse, I've got that too. Music projects. I'm shifting around right now. I'm going to release another beat tape on my own under the Cloak. That's my little handle for that. But if you follow my social media, that might change. We'll see, because I'm working on different projects as well. But I just like the advice. I would like to say, if anybody who's listening to this, just don't stop doing what you're doing. Like, don't forget to try and get uncomfortable as much as you can. That's what I'm doing. Get uncomfortable. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like that just allows you to explore things you don't even realize you're already aware of. Like, just
yeah, dude. That's good. That's good eating, man, as my dad would say.